All right, today's episode of this helicoil insert gone wrong. So I'm gonna take you in here and look, and I've done a couple of these videos. You can see I've tried to extract this, and it is in there stuck like Chuck. Um, this was not installed flush, so the only thing that the spark plug can seal to is just this raised edge of the helicoil insert, or the Save a Thread brand. And I like these. You just got to install them right. So the spark plug keeps backing out on this guy. So I can't get this out without damaging the cylinder. I've tried heat, and you can tell I've dug in there and it will not budge. So my other option is to just replace the cylinder. Went on eBay, found a nice cylinder. There was only one picture of it, and they've installed a helicoil insert for it, fresh and ready for me. They've installed it just a little bit below the surface, but the machined area where the spark plug seats is in good shape, so I feel like this is going to be a good fit. I haven't seen the copper ones, but that would make sense that this would expand before the aluminum, because copper, if that is indeed copper, is going to expand first when things start to heat up. So I'll have to keep my fingers crossed. I hate that that's not there. These are a bear to get out because they are usually Loctited in, and that's what holds your top cover in place. So on today's adventure, we are going to disassemble. I've got this in my saw vise, courtesy of Scott Coons, because being able to manipulate this is the most complicated saw ever fucking produced. I will show you everything you have to remove just to pull the cylinder. This should be something super easy. If there was an MS440, I could do this swap in 25 minutes or less. This is going to be at least an hour to tear apart the saw with the most parts ever. Here we go. What a disaster. Anyway, big pile of fasteners and goodies and everything else. Here's the old cylinder, got the decomp valve out. The best way to get that threaded post out is to apply a little bit of heat around this base. You've got, a nice point of contact right there. Get that aluminum to swell just a little bit. And then what I do is I just pinch the non-threaded top of that with a pair of vice grips. And if this is hot enough, it'll back out. Trying to get it out. I think there's an install tool for that, but I don't think there's a removal tool. So you have to just get crafty. And then I reinstalled it and used some blue Loctite in there. And it bit nicely. I got it seated down and she's in there. Swap the intake boot back over, decomp plugs there. Let's have a look on the inside for those who like to get into this. Everything's nice and clean in here. Good film oil. I think Ken uses, and I won't be able to look right now because I got everything so precariously balanced. But when all this goes back together, there's a couple of things, and you can see I've taken the throttle cable rod, or throttle cable, out of its home. So I need to make sure that goes back in. But you've got a ton of stuff that has to line up back in here. You've got your impulse line, your fuel line, wiring, all has to be tucked back in. And, muffler goes back on, yada, 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 yada. All right, so that took me about 20 minutes of real time. It felt like it was longer. Let's see how long it takes me to put it back together. So I'm sorry, there's no step-by-step to doing this. It's too damn tedious. But I will say, if you attempt this, then right now is the time where you need to check several things that you got. Here, let me zoom in. And so you've got to be able to snake this. There's a holder right behind there that you can't see for the throttle cable. That still has to be intact. I did not undo it. I just managed to, push this down and advance the throttle, so they leave you that little tab to pull out on, so you can remove the throttle cable from its plastic holder right there. All your wires tucked in where they belong. Fasteners are hooked up. That's all done all the way around there. Everything's tucked in there, blah, blah, blah. God, I hate working on these. All right. So you also, as you install your carburetor, here's another good one, is that white piece of nylon right there, that accepts the throttle arm off the side of the carburetor. So make sure when you put this back together, because if you push on these linkages wrong, ask me how I know, that your butterflies won't actuate correctly. All right. So we've got perfect actuation. So now it's okay to put all the easy shit back on. And I'll do that. We'll fire it up and then just do a general overview when I'm done. All right, I was curious. So as part of the parts lookup software that I have, this also gives me repair time. So what would be considered book labor for Stihl. So I looked up replace cylinder and or piston, includes air leak, test, and repair of components causing failure. Seems pretty broad. 80 minutes. I did it I started at 12:09. So I'm right at an hour, but I've also had time to, look this up. Put the saws back together. If this is the first time you ever do this or have worked on a 441, we'd have to do that in dog years, because there's no way, if you're not familiar with working on that saw with the most parts ever put on. I'm going to pause this, and then I'm just going to look up something simple like a MS441 and see what a top end swap goes for time-wise. All right, so on a 461, it's still a generous amount of time, 60 minutes. I think for somebody who does this every day, that's more than fair. Anyway, enough about that. Most people hate working on these. This was supposed to bring this was the 21st century idea. They were going to include spring AVs and they've got air injection and yada yada yada. But I think everybody who wanted a part put on here got their wish. These are ridiculously overcomplicated compared to what we see now in more modern saws. Anyway, thanks for coming along for the ride. Let's just take this thing out and make sure I didn't break anything. Yeah. All right. Should be pretty straightforward here. Hey, babe.
I'm off to the doctor.
Huh?
I'm off to the doctor.
All righty.
I'll be back.
All right, small interruption. But what I can tell you is, because it's an M-tronic saw, here, let me shut this shit off. So, what we end up with, I had to pull on this thing a good bit. I'm a little winded. So, because the spark plug was backing out, the M-tronic system was trying to throw more fuel at it because it had an air leak. So it popped on that first pull, but it was throwing a ton of fuel on the low side. So I just had to keep ripping it on, just regular on setting, you know, your run setting, no choke, no throttle advance. And then feather the throttle until I could get it up to speed, because, well, the low side was trying to flood it out. That makes sense. So anyway, that's a success. And on to the next one. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.